Hey guys, it's your girl Okornore with another video, and it's another story time, sort of, kinda, just sort of talking about an experience that I've had. But before that, can you all see that our resident easy plant has shot out a new branch? I'm very, very proud of it because I didn't think it was going to survive. So yeah, there we are. Um, But yes, today's video is going to be on my experience having my first fibroid surgery, and I actually put a poll on Twitter when I got 100 followers to ask you people what you want my next story time to be, and you guys said that you wanted it to be on my experience having my first fibroid surgery. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So yeah, let's get right into it. But before that, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. The Uterus Ninja channel is all about talking about female reproductive health and everything to do with uteri and periods and vaginas and all that good stuff. So if you want to learn more, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a meow meow outside. Yeah, that's my new kitten. Um, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna go get him so you can meet him. Alright, guys, so this is Imai. Imai, say hi. Okay, I'm not sure he's really in the mood right now. Um, but yeah, I got him a couple of weeks ago. He's about 8 weeks, 8 weeks old at this point. He's really not trying to. I was hoping for like a lazy cuddly cat, and what I got was essentially a Power Ranger. Essentially, as you guys may have gotten from like my previous videos and things, heavy periods have always been an issue for me pretty much since I had my first period at 13 years old, but we couldn't really figure out what the problem was. And so I pretty much like went through my teenage years and everything not really knowing what was going on. And then I remember in 2015, I believe, I had a period which was essentially about 90 days long or 91 days long. And the only way that period actually stopped, you can see this animal just trying to, if you're trying to be in the video, just stay here then. 90 days long, and the only way that period actually stopped was by me having the fibroid surgery. And so during the time that I was bleeding continuously, I would go and see my GP, and they would then refer me to a gynecologist. Now, one of the issues that I have with the NHS in particular is the fact that you cannot just go to a specialist straight away. So you have to go and see your GP, and they then have to refer you to whatever specialist it is that you need to see. The problem with that is that if you live in a very densely populated area, or you live in a place where specialists just aren't as available, then that means long waiting time. So when I started getting worried about the length of my period, and I went to go and see my GP, it took a while before I actually got an appointment just to even get a transvaginal scan done. Then I got that done, and they told me what I already knew. I already knew that I had cysts in my ovaries, but other than that, they couldn't really find anything else. Then this was probably like a couple of weeks into that particular period. Then a very close friend of mine got married. The mother of my godchildren, she got married. So obviously that was a really busy time for me, and I was part of like the planning and the organization and all those kind of things. And I remember that at the time that the wedding was going on, I think I had been bleeding for maybe like a month and a half to 2 months. I had gone to see a gynecologist, but there hadn't really been a lot of progress. They had prescribed me tranexamic acid and mefenamic acid, but none of that was working. The thing with me and mefenamic acid as well is that most people that know me know that I don't like it, and the main reason is that it makes me feel very lethargic. It gives me headaches. It makes me out of breath, and I'm not quite sure why it does that, but it does. And so that wasn't working, and so I was still bleeding. I went, Jesus Christ, this animal. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put him outside. Yes. So quick recap. I had my period for a long period of time, about a month and a half to 2 months. I was then helping out with my friend's wedding, and literally, obviously, the wedding celebrations and everything happened over the weekend. On the Monday, things were all kind of like starting to settle down and things. And I think when that adrenaline rush wore off, because of course I'd been bleeding for a very long time, and so I started getting anemic. But I guess with the adrenaline rush and all the fun I was having and things, I wasn't really feeling it. And I think the thing with dealing with a problem like mine as well, and then also having anxiety and perhaps ill mental health sometimes, that combination can be a very vicious cycle, because there are a lot of times where I'm thinking to myself that I'm like everything is in my head. And so like obviously I can see that I'm bleeding for a long time, but like the weakness and the headaches and the nausea and things, for a very long time my brain kept convincing me that no, it's all in my head, and if I go and tell a doctor about this, or if I make a big deal out of this, nobody's going to believe me. And so like that combination of things really did not help me, and so I was like kind of managing this thing and just going through the motions. As long as I was able to get things done, as long as I was able to get out of bed, I felt like, okay, I'm fine. And so that Monday, I left my friend's place to go back to uni, to go back to campus, and I got to Euston Station, and I can't even remember exactly what happened, but I think I got to Euston Station. So I was coming from Milton Keynes. I got to Euston Station, and I think I went to go. I felt bad the entire ride. And so I got out of the train, and I think I went to go look for some help. And I can't remember what happened after that, but all I know is that I passed out. So I passed out in Euston Station. They took me to some area, and then all I could feel was like really, really bad pain, and like in my abdomen. And that's usually how things go for me. So I'll bleed for a long time, I will exert myself or do some strenuous activity, and it's almost as if as soon as like the pain starts hitting as well, my body is like, fuck this, I can't take pain on top of everything else, and then I end up just passing out and wake up obviously at some point, but then I wake up with the pain already having set in. So like I woke up in this train station, in this, I guess, back office or whatever it was, in pain. They took me to UCLH, which is the closest hospital to Euston Station, and I always say that that experience was a blessing in disguise, because if I had not gotten to UCLH, I don't think I would have gotten the care that I have had, even though like the care for my issues has never been perfect. I don't think I would have gotten as good the care that I have if I hadn't gone to UCLH, because up until that point, every time I had been taken to hospital for pain or heavy bleeding or anything like that, it was literally just prescribing me medication, and that was it. I got to UCLH that day, and within 20 minutes I had gotten painkillers. I had never experienced that before in my life. And so I was settled down. I called my family. They came to see me eventually. I think I was discharged that very day or the next. And then I was booked in to see a gynecologist, but now because my case had basically been transferred to UCLH, I was able to see gynecologists at UCLH. And so I went to go and get a scan done, and they could see that my uterus lining was very, very thick, and they could see a fibroid which was very, very small. However, that was the only explanation that they had for the bleeding to be occurring. Usually, heavy bleeding happens when the fibroids are a little bit larger. People can live with small fibroids for years and years and years and years, decades actually, and never even notice that they have them because their periods never change. But they just assumed that I was a individual case who I guess is particularly sensitive to fibroids. Just to explain what fibroids are, as a matter of fact, fibroids are essentially non-cancerous tumors that grow either inside your uterus, as in the space that a baby would usually be. They can also grow in the uterus lining, or like in the wall of the uterus. They can grow in there, and they can grow on the outside of the uterus as well. And so depending on where the fibroid is, it can be either less or more complicated trying to remove it. Before we even got to discussing whether or not to remove the fibroid, they took a biopsy of my uterine lining, and let me oh child, taking so guys, how do I even explain this? So there's a tube, okay, there's a tube like thing. That's all I remember, that they put inside my vagina. And they essentially, I guess the tube has some sort of like tiny scissors or something attached to it, and they inserted that inside my vagina, through my cervix, into my uterus, and snipped off a part of my uterine lining. Now I say snipped off very, very casually, but fuck shit, that shit. Like I can't nah, bitch, I can actually feel it right now. I don't think I've spoken about this for so long, but then now that I speak about it again, I can actually feel the pain again. Like that shit hurted. And it was it's just nothing that I've ever experienced before. Like, because on a day-to-day basis, when do you ever have to have like a part of your uterine lining snipped off? But yeah, so they went in, did a little snip of my uterine lining, went to go and test it just to make sure that the growth, or like the excessive growth of my uterine lining wasn't actually cancerous. So they went to go and test it, and they found out that it isn't cancerous. And so going forward, all they essentially needed to do was to remove the fibroid that they had found. And so I got booked in, and I think I had to wait for about 4 to 6 weeks for my surgery, which again wasn't pleasant, because those were 4 to 6 weeks that I still had to keep on bleeding and becoming more and more anemic. During that time, I lost a lot of hair, which was like one of the most traumatic symptoms that I've ever had of, having super heavy periods and, subsequently having anemia. Losing your hair is just one of those things where, I don't know, especially for somebody like me who is always like, okay, as long as I look put together from the outside, I can sort of like deal with everything else in my own little corner and things. Like, as long as people don't know that anything is going on, as long as like when I look in the mirror, I don't look like a sickler, as Ghanaians like to say. I really hate that word, but yeah, as long as I don't look like somebody who is unwell, whatever that means, whatever perception I had of somebody that is unwell. As long as I don't look like that, I'm okay. And so, sort of like losing my hair, and I'm somebody that has always been like passionate about, my hair and how it looks and all those sort of things. And so losing my hair, obviously I couldn't have braids, because essentially like a huge patch at the back of my head was just, it's like, it was like buzz cut. Like there was little tufts of hair, but that was pretty much it. There was a little patch in the middle of my hair that became very, very thin. As a matter of fact, I'm still dealing with some of that to this day. And so that was like a big thing that I had to deal with, and I just wanted all of that to be over and done with. So I just wanted the surgery to be done. Luckily enough, for that particular surgery, I wasn't too anemic to have it, so I didn't have to like have a blood transfusion or anything like that. I had a blood transfusion before that occasion, but we'll speak about that in a different story time. So they just booked me in. I just had to wait, and on the day, all I had to do was go in the morning at 7 a.m. and yeah, I had to be there at like 7 or 7:30. And because fibroid surgeries, especially the kind that I would have, so because my fibroid was inside my womb, so it was inside the uterine cavity, if you want to call it that, I didn't need major surgery. They essentially removed it in the same way that they conduct a D&C. And a D&C is essentially when they just go in and scrape the lining of your uterus. Scrape sounds very harsh, but it's not as harsh as you think. It's the same way that they used to commonly conduct abortions. They don't do that so much now for abortions, but that used to be a typical way that they did it. They just go in and use their instruments and essentially just pull away the lining of the uterus, and then whatever else is growing in there kind of comes apart with it. And so they just literally didn't have to cut or anything. They just went in through my vagina, through my cervix, and they did it that way. So there was no cuts, no nothing. And so because I was having such a simple procedure, I literally had to just go in the morning. There's a queue. They tend to like book a couple of them in a day, and I guess the gynecologists at UCLH have like set days where they do these procedures, so they'll just spend one day, I guess maybe one day a week, where they just bang out fibroid removals or like other minor surgeries like that. So I went in, they made me change. That particular time, I didn't spend a lot of time at all. On subsequent surgeries, I've had to wait much longer once I got into the hospital, but this one was pretty quick. I got in, I think I was one of the first people. So they made me change into a robe. Had to like, I guess, fill out some forms, I think. And then they gave me the fancy like hospital socks and things. I had to take off all of my jewelry, and I remember actually that I was wearing beads on my legs because I'm always wearing anklets, but I never wear pants, so yeah, that's why. I'm always wearing anklets, and I remember that at the time I was wearing anklet beads that were tie on. They didn't have the little clasp thing, and so they were telling me that I had to take it off. I managed to like slide off my waist beads, but I couldn't slide the anklet beads off. And then I thought I had to lie and tell them that it was for religious purposes. So yeah. I think the only reason why they let me keep them on was because it doesn't have any metal in it. They do not let you into surgery with any unnecessary metal on you. I take off all of my jewelry, and then they wheel me into this room, and it's just like basically a foyer for the operation room. And so my anesthesiologist comes in, he's like chatting to me and all these kind of things. And because this is my first surgery, I didn't realize that it's all formats. Okay, I didn't realize that at first. I thought that he was really interested in me and all those kind of things, and we're just having a conversation. But actually, I think the reason why they do that is they keep you talking, so that once they do give you the anesthesia, they know exactly the point where you are actually asleep. Because if you come in and you're quiet, if they give you the anesthesia and there isn't, like, I guess, a stark difference in your behavior, it's harder to tell whether you're actually asleep or not. But obviously, if you're chatting, you're talking, and all of a sudden you're then likelihood has it that the anesthesia is working. So yeah, so they put the anesthesia through my vein, asked me to count backwards from 10, and I think I got to about 8 and knocked out. And the next thing I remembered was that I woke up in the recovery room. Now, they say that after fibroid surgery, you shouldn't really feel any pain. But for me personally, that is a lie. It's not like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, but it's still pain. And I guess because I'm used to period pain being quite dramatic, I I wasn't shocked per se, but then I was in pain and I was groggy because the anesthesia was still wearing off and things. Because I was in pain, I had to stay in the recovery room a little bit longer than usual. And it turns out it was later on that I found out that my mom was losing her shit waiting for me, because they told her it would take 45 minutes, and after 45 minutes I wasn't out. So she was like losing her top. But yeah, eventually they let me come out, and the first thing I said I wanted was McDonald's. Because yeah, why not? Like, what else are you gonna want when somebody has just been up in your vagina scraping out shit? What else? So yeah, and that was when it was pretty much done. After the surgery, I may have had some bleeding for a couple of days, but it stopped pretty quickly. And after that surgery, my period was, I can't say normal because I've never really had a normal cycle. Sorry, my toe moved and I thought it was a creepy crawly. I don't know what's wrong with me. But yeah, I can't say that after the surgery my period went back to normal because I've never really had a normal period, but it sort of went back to me having just about one period a month, and it would last between a week and 2 weeks. And to me, that was as normal as it gets. And also, those periods weren't so heavy that I was like bleeding all over the place. So for me, that surgery had brought me back to my normal, which then means that the surgery was successful. They told me that I could go back to work after a week, but I shouldn't do any heavy lifting. So as I said, like, it really is a minor surgery. It's not something that you have to stay in the hospital for afterwards. It's just that you do have to have somebody with you that will take you home after the surgery. Usually they won't let you go home by yourself. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience with my first fibroid surgery. Oh, in terms of aftercare as well, they pretty much just gave me was it ibuprofen? Was it ibuprofen or paracetamol, one of the two, which obviously didn't do fuck all. So I continued medicating with some cocodamol that I had at home due to the pain that I was experiencing whilst I was bleeding. But I didn't need it for too long. I probably needed it for maybe like a day or two, and I was good. But yeah, that was my experience getting my first fibroid surgery. My surgeries after that all have been pretty different, so I'll probably do separate videos on those. But yeah, it wasn't half as scary as I thought it would be. I didn't have to get cut up. There were no complications whatsoever. The fibroid was gone. It hasn't grown back since. So, because something that people tend to get scared of is that they do say that once you cut out fibroids, they do tend to come back with a vengeance. But that has not been the case with me. Actually, the bleeding that I've been experiencing since then that have caused me to have surgery, similar surgery, isn't actually due to fibroids. But we'll get to that when I do future videos. So yeah, if this has been helpful, let me know in the comment section. If there's any other questions that you have, let me know in the comment section as well. If there's anything else that you want to contribute to the conversation as well, definitely do that. Go follow me on Twitter at Okornore. The name is also in the description box, and let's continue these sort of conversations, because I think it's very important that people know about the process of getting these surgeries, so that they are either more informed about the scary parts, or actually get to realize that actually it's not that scary at all. So yeah, that's it. Take care of yourselves, guys. COVID is still real, so wear your masks, please. And take care of your vaginas, take care of your uteri. Please, 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 please journal your periods, because if you ever need medical attention, your periods are basically a vital sign, just like your blood pressure, just like your pulse, just like your breathing rate. If you have a uterus, your period is a vital sign. And so if there's ever anything different, you should definitely note that down, so that you'll be able to tell medical professionals about it. But yeah, that's it, guys. I've spoken a lot. I've talked plenty. It's okay. Go and have fun. Enjoy the rest of your week. Mwah.